Chapter 1732. I'm here to ask you to kill me. Noah fell silent when he heard those words from the fatigued Jerv. Noah's understanding of Jerv had already increased when he obtained the lumen starlight. In the past, Noah's understanding of Jerv had stopped at the level of the most vicious and evil dark mage in history. Apart from that, Noah didn't have any other impression of Jerv. It wasn't until Makarov entrusted him with the lumen starlight that Noah had a whole new understanding of Jerv. The man in front of him was just a pitiful person. He was a pitiful person who tried to die, and his abilities were so great that they involved the realm of God. In the end, he was cursed by God and obtained an immortal body. The curse that would take away the lives of the people around him the more he cherished his life was too cruel for a person. Noah felt that if he were in Jerv's shoes, he would definitely want to die. After all, instead of continuously taking the lives of the innocent people around him, and even the lives of those he cherished, it would be better to just die. Of course, Noah was much luckier than Jerv as he had a physique that would definitely not be cursed. Even God wouldn't be able to impose any curse on Noah, who had transcended the realm of humans and was doted on by thousands of worlds. Unfortunately, Jerv wasn't Noah, and wasn't doted on by the world. It would be better to say that Jerv was abandoned by the world because he was involved in the realm of God as a human, and could no longer integrate into this era. Some people said that ignorance was a sin. However, sometimes, it was also a sin if one's knowledge and talent were too outstanding. Jerv's existence proved that point. However, Noah definitely wouldn't choose to die like Jerv. Hence, Noah only had one kind of emotion towards Jerv. It wasn't sympathy, pity, sarcasm, or mockery. Instead, he was more or less angry. Under the control of his emotions, Noah's gaze on Jerv became sharper and sharper, and he abruptly asked this question. He suddenly asked, "It has been almost 400 years since you were called the most vicious and evil dark mage in history, right?" "Yes, I have indeed lived for 400 years, and belong to the same era as the dragons," Jerv answered honestly after being stunned for a moment. "So, I don't belong to this era either. Just like Akonarolia, I should disappear with the change of era. Just because of this, you're going to borrow my hand." Noah sneered. "Do you think I'll agree to that kind of thing?" "You're not going to agree." Jerv frowned and asked in confusion. "Why? Don't you see me as an evil dark mage? The crimes that he had committed up until now could be counted as innumerable, right? You shouldn't mind killing me, right?" "I won't mind killing you," Noah said indifferently. "But don't you think that's letting you off too easily?" "Letting me off too easily?" Jerv was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "You've said it yourself. You've committed countless sins so far. Not only did you leave behind forbidden spells like Systemar that cost lives, but you've also created many demons that directly and indirectly took away the future and happiness of so many people," Noah said word by word as he stared at Jerv. "You've committed so many sins and left behind so much evil, and now you want to die. How can it be that easy?" That was the biggest difference between Noah and Jerv. Death is a form of release, but at the same time, it's also a form of escape. Noah said without hesitation. "I won't kill you before you redeem yourself for all your sins." Jeffrey fell silent upon hearing this. After a long while, Jerv spoke with an expressionless face. "However, if you don't kill me, I will only commit more crimes. As long as I don't die, my existence will continuously rob the future and happiness of the people around me unless I forget the preciousness of life. However, in that situation, I will also rob the lives of others without hesitation as I view life as nothing more than grass. No matter what, my existence will only bring misfortune to others in any form." Jerv looked at Noah with dark emotions surging in his eyes. "Even so, you don't intend to kill me?" "No. If I let you live and allow you to commit even more sins, that would be putting the cart before the horse," Noah said calmly. The question is whether your curse will take away the lives of others when you realize how precious life is, right? As Noah said this, he raised his head and gazed at Jeff. A look that even Jeff couldn't understand appeared in his deep, dark eyes. Then, Noah picked up his pace and walked in Jerv's direction. Looking at Jerv approaching him step by step, Jerv's face was full of doubt, but he didn't show the slightest resistance. He just watched silently as Noah approached and stood in front of him. Noah looked into Jerv's eyes and said, "I won't let you take away the lives of innocent people. Even if you're cursed by God." As soon as his voice fell, Poochie. With a tearing sound, the elf device named Demon Slayer penetrated Jerv's heart and came out from his back. Ha! Jerv didn't expect that Noah, who had claimed that he wouldn't kill him just a second ago, would suddenly attack him. His eyes slowly widened, and he looked at Noah with astonishment in his eyes. Under such circumstances, Jerv didn't notice it. The holy sword that penetrated his body didn't bring out a single drop of blood. Just like that, Jerv suddenly felt it. An unimaginable power appeared in his body without any reason, and he went berserk. A deep darkness surged from Jerv's body and turned into a gust of pitch-black wind that swept in all directions. Woo! Ah! Jerv felt as if something in his body was about to explode, causing him to scream in excruciating pain. The darkness that surged from Jerv's body like a swamp rolled wildly and shook the entire pitch-black space. Clang! At this moment, the demon slayer that pierced through Jeffrey's body emitted a dazzling white light. It surged out like a tide and covered the darkness that surged out from Jeffrey's body. Under the dazzling white light of the demon slayer, the thick darkness that surged out of Jeffrey's body started to dissipate bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Noah pulled out the holy sword, causing Jerv to tremble and kneel on the ground as he panted heavily. Jilf was sweating profusely as he panted heavily. He raised his trembling hands and exclaimed in disbelief. "The curse on me, I removed it," Noah said matter-of-factly. "My Aster has the ability to remove any curse, even if it's a god's curse." Noah's words made Jerv's expression change. There was surprise, doubt, confusion, and even disbelief in his expression. "This way, you won't take the lives of others uncontrollably, and you won't have an immortal lifespan." Noah turned his back to Jerv. "What you need to do next is to atone for the sins that you've committed in the past 400 years. With that, Noah glanced at Jerv. "As long as you live," Li Tianlon said. After saying that, Noah ignored Gerald and slowly walked in the direction of his companions. After a while, Mavis sighed. "If this is your decision, then I can't say anything." "Oh." Noah chuckled. "Why?" "Because right now, you are the president of Fairy Tale, the representative of humans in this era." Mavis closed her eyes and revealed a cute smile. "And I am just a departed spirit. I can't interfere with the decisions of the living and affect the development of this era." A departed spirit. Noah couldn't help but laugh. "You said it yourself, I'm the guild leader of Fairy Tale. Do you think I don't know that you're still alive? The inexhaustible source of magic lumen starlight. That miracle was built on Mavis' body, which also carried the curse of the god of Ankh. Mavis wasn't truly dead. She was only affected by the curse of the god of Ankh, which was even more powerful than her own. She fell into a dilemma of having her immortal life taken away. This was the so-called state of suspended animation. If Mavis could be revived, Noah could use Aster's power to remove the curse on her body. Then, Mavis would be able to live again. Just like Ankh. "Although I don't have the means to save you right now, once I complete my mission, everything will be fine." Noah didn't look at Mavis as he spoke with a hidden meaning. "So, do you still insist that you are dead?" Hearing this, Mavis didn't say anything. She walked briskly beside Noah with her hands behind her back. She looked at the sky, her gem-like eyes swaying gently like the surface of a lake. The dragon race has already gone extinct, Aeconarolia has been destroyed by you, Ankh is about to embark on a journey to atone for his sins, and existences that don't belong to this era have their own path of return. If I am revived, then what should I live for? From Mavis's words, Noah could clearly hear a hint of bewilderment. In response, Noah spoke without hesitation. Is there even a need to say it? Of course, it's for the fairy tale. His words caused Mavis to be completely stunned. I will definitely resurrect you. Noah faintly smiled at Mavis, who was staring blankly at him. When the time comes, you will join my guild and live for my guild. Noah's words made Mavis' gem-like eyes shine with a peculiar light. Shortly after, Mavis smiled happily. Yes. The instant Mavis nodded, the pitch-black luster in the surrounding space began to fade away. Time resumed its flow. The sea of fire that had filled the entire Clocossi had gradually extinguished at some point. In the square, the group of high mages raised their heads and looked at the sky. Over there, led by Ignal, Grandaini, Metallicana, Boslosaya, and Shigiadora, the dragons floated in the air. They lowered their heads and looked at their children in silence. Gadjalu, Wendy, Sting, and Rog were also looking at their adoptive parents flying in the sky. For a moment, all sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts, and they didn't know what to say. Naz was the only one who kept yelling at Igunal. Ignir! Hurry up and explain yourself. Why did you come out of my body? You are so noisy, Naz. Naz! Igunir roared helplessly, as if he was humiliated. Can't you be any quieter at this time? Who cares what time it is? The more Naz spoke, the angrier he got. I have been looking for you. But you hid in my body. You are too much. That's right. Wendy said with tears in her eyes, feeling wronged. I have also been looking for you, Grandaini. I'm sorry, Wendy, Grandaini said apologetically. We had no choice. If we didn't hide in your bodies, we wouldn't have been able to extend our lives. Extend our lives. Wendy was startled. Not to mention Wendy, even Naz, Gadjalu, Sting, Roger, and the others opened their eyes wide, and their expressions were completely frozen on the spot. Gadjalu couldn't help but step forward and shout at Metallicana. What is the meaning of this? Metallicana didn't say anything. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Noah beside him before he spoke in a deep voice. I think you should have discovered our state, right? Hearing Metallicana's words, everyone's gazes converged on Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah was silent for a while. After a while, he cast his gaze on the group of dragons. Although I don't know what's going on, I can feel that the life aura in your bodies is constantly draining away. If this continues, you might disappear soon, right? Naz and the others were shocked and stood there in a daze. Chapter 1734. Disappear. The dragons would disappear. Igunal, Grandine, Metallicana, Perlogia, and Shchiadora would all disappear. What kind of joke was this? Grandine. Wendy said with a trembling voice. Is this true? Naz, Gadjalu, Sting, and Rog stared at the dragons who were their adoptive parents, trying to find a trace of a joke from them. Unfortunately, they were destined to be disappointed. That human is right. We are indeed about to disappear, Perlogia said calmly. No, to be more precise, we should have disappeared 400 years ago. 400 years ago, our souls were already taken away by Aeconarolia's dragon-slaying magic, Shchiadora said calmly. That's why we could only seal all of our remaining power into your bodies to extend your lifespan. Of course, the purpose of doing this is not only to extend your lifespan, but also to prevent you from becoming a dragon like Aeconarolia because of the dragon-slaying magic. For this reason, we must create antibodies to prevent you from becoming a dragon. After doing this, we only have one last purpose left, Metallicana said as he looked at Aconarolia's corpse. That is to defeat Aconarolia. When we were at Heavenly Wolf Island, we had already decided to come out of your bodies, but unfortunately, we didn't make it in time. Grandine's voice was still as gentle as ever. Fortunately, you are all safe and sound. Then, we've been waiting for the opportunity to defeat Aconarolia. We've been waiting until now. Ignir turned his gaze to Noah. However, it seems that our existence is unnecessary. Even without us, you can rely on your own strength to defeat Aconarolia. The potential of humans is indeed limitless. Noah was silent. Naz was still in disbelief. He clenched his fists, his body trembling, and his emotions fluctuating violently. Liar. Wendy's tears finally flowed down. Damn it. Gadula turned his head and gritted his teeth, suppressing the sadness in his heart. Even Sting and Rog lowered their heads with complicated expressions, not knowing what to do. In this regard, the others could only watch this scene, speechless. The atmosphere in the air suddenly became heavy and sorrowful. Brother Noah. Wendy could only turn her head and grab Noah's clothes as if she was grasping at straws. Can you think of a way to save Grandine? Hearing this, Noah had a bitter expression and shook his head. If their souls were still here, I might have a way. But their souls have already been taken away by Aconarolia's dragon-slaying magic, and now they are Swul is power. I can't do anything. Not to mention Noah, even Athena, who was in charge of life and death, could not do anything about this situation. After all, the dragons was their power was SSS. They would not be able to survive in this form for long. So, not to mention the current Noah, even if his authority, sovereignty, ability value, and treasury were at their peak, Noah would not be able to do anything about this situation. How? How could this be? Wendy's eyes became wet again. Then what should we do? Father. Naz clenched his teeth, holding back his tears. Do you really have to disappear? Don't feel sad, Naz. Igunal smiled magnanimously. You are no longer a child. You have your own companions and your own family. You have even joined a guild and become an amazing magic shooter. If you can't even bear this kind of parting, how can you call yourself the son of the fire dragon King Igonial in the future? I am your son. Naz could no longer hold back his tears, but he tried his best not to let his voice carry a sob. No matter what, I am your son. That's right. Igunal laughed out loud, but there was no trace of sadness in his voice. There was only relief that gave everyone unlimited courage. Parting is just a part of life. I will always be by your side and watch you grow. Don't forget this, Naz. Me too. Grandine looked at Wendy gently. I will always be by your side, Wendy. I'm not as gentle as Igunal and Grandine. Metallicana smiled at Gadulu. But even without me, you can definitely do it, right? Isn't that a given? Gadulu met Metallicana's gaze and looked over. There was not much sadness on his face. I will definitely live a more exciting life than anyone else. Is that so? Metallicana pursed his lips. I hope your eyes won't be so scary anymore. Boslosaya and Shigeadora did not say much. They just looked at Justin and Logue. Their gazes met, and everything was understood without words. Then, the dragons' bodies began to emit a faint light. Grandine. Wendy cried out with tears flowing down her face. Take care, Wendy, Grandine murmured softly, then looked at Noah and said. I'll leave Wendy to you. Don't worry. Noah nodded heavily. I won't let Wendy get hurt even a little. Only then did Grandine smile with relief. In the faint light, Igunal, Grandine, Metallicana, Boslosaya, and Shigeadora fixed their gazes on their children. Then, their huge bodies turned into light particles and gradually disappeared into the air. Roar, 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 roar. The dragon's roar resounded through the sky as the 5 dragons disappeared, echoing under the night sky. At this point, including Aeconarolia, the dragons that dominated the entire world 400 years ago had truly retired from the stage. The existence that replaced the dragons and emitted light in this world was the humans. Noah squatted down and hugged Wendy, who buried her head in his arms and cried softly. He looked at the place where the dragons disappeared and did not speak for a long time. On this day, Noah personally ended the legend of Aeconarolia and changed Jerv's future. At the same time, he also witnessed the final glory of the dragons. However, this was not the only thing that Noah should do. The sky slowly began to brighten. In the palace, in front of the magnificent eclipse gate, a young girl in a black robe stood there, looking at the gate that was engraved with the sun, moon, and stars. Her expression was extremely serene. She looked as if she was reminiscing about something beautiful, and no one could bear to interrupt her. Not long after, Noah walked over with powerful but slow steps and stopped a certain distance away from her. Looking at the young girl in the black robe, Noah did not immediately speak and silently stood there. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew across the scene, raising Noah's robe and the young girl's black robe, causing a faint trace of sadness to appear in the air. Then, the young girl finally spoke. Actually, it is impossible for there to be more than one future phenomenon. The reason why this phenomenon exists is because of this spacetime gate that can change the future. Noah confirmed the young girl's words. Indeed. It was impossible for there to be more than one future. At the very least, it should be like this in this world. There was only one reason why there would be more than one future phenomenon. That was because there was a factor that could change the future. That factor was the eclipse gate. In other words, without the eclipse gate, there would not be more than one future. The young girl was still looking at the spacetime gate as she said, "Now that things have developed to this point, I have finally sorted out some things." In the future Rog's era, Aeconarolia dominated the entire world. That was the original development of the era, and it was the first future. In the first future, Rog was not willing to be dominated by Aeconarolia, so he used the eclipse gate to return to 7 years ago, which was my era. He summoned 10,000 dragons and dominated my era, which was the second future. And after the death of my companions, I, who couldn't walk out of the sorrow, also had the idea of changing the future. Through the eclipse gate, I came to the time before Log summoned the dragon, which is the current era, leading to the third future. However, I don't know why, but in this future, you exist. Through your hands, you banished 10,000 dragons and defeated Aeconarolia, making the future of this era unprecedentedly bright. The future Lucy turned around and looked at Noah with a faint smile. Unfortunately, this is not my future, nor is it my world. Whether it is me or the future Rog, the future that belongs to us still exists. Noah nodded and turned his gaze to the eclipse gate. Noah knew about the future Lucy's plan. That was, to destroy the eclipse gate. Chapter 1735. There was only one future in the first place. However, the eclipse gate, which could travel through time and space, gave people the right to change the future, leading to the appearance of multiple futures. So, if the eclipse that caused all of this was destroyed, what would happen? The result would be that with the destruction of the eclipse as the dividing line, there would be two types of futures, a future with the eclipse and a future without the eclipse. However, the eclipse itself was the factor that caused the appearance of multiple futures. If this factor disappeared, the appearance of multiple futures would become impossible. The eclipse existed in the future of Lucy and Roger, which was why the two of them could come from the future to this era. Once the eclipse was destroyed, the factor that caused the appearance of multiple futures would disappear, and there would be a contradiction between a future with multiple futures and no future with multiple futures. This way, the two types of futures, a future with the eclipse and a future without the eclipse, would conflict with this contradiction. These contradictions and conflicts would cause the timeline to be completely messed up, and it was possible that the world itself would collapse. However, the world would not just sit by and watch this happen. At the very least, Noah was sure that once this happened, the world would repair itself and eliminate this contradiction. So, how could this contradiction be eliminated? It was very simple. Eliminate all of the different futures that appeared because of the eclipse gate. The so-called futures were things that had not happened yet. If something hadn't happened yet, then it shouldn't be possible for it to happen. Therefore, once the eclipse gate was destroyed, all of the futures that had not happened yet would disappear, leaving only this era that was still in progress. In this way, the fact that Lucy's companions died in the future would not appear. Since this was the case, what Lucy wanted to do in the future was already clear. There was only one thing that Lucy did not know about the future. That was, after the eclipse was destroyed, there would be two futures left. One was a future with Noah. The other was a future without Noah. After all, Noah's arrival was not caused by the eclipse gate. Therefore, even if the eclipse gate that caused the appearance of multiple futures disappeared, all of the futures that had not happened yet would be eliminated, leaving behind these two futures. However, the world would probably merge the two futures to prevent this kind of contradiction that caused the timeline to be messed up again. As for the two futures that were merged, it was obvious which one would be the main one. No matter what, the world would not allow the future where Noah existed to disappear, right? In other words, once the eclipse was destroyed, the only era left behind would be the era where Noah existed. The rest of the messy future would disappear along with the destruction of the eclipse portal, including the future Lucy's era, as well as the future Lucy herself. This was the result of the space-time paradox was fixed. Have you really made up your mind? Noah asked quietly. You can also choose to continue living in this era, right? After all, this isn't my world. Future Lucy shook her head. Moreover, there is already me is here. The future Lucy was Lucy, and they were not two completely different people. Therefore, Noah's idea of choosing to continue living in this era was wrong. The reason for that was because the existence by the name of Lucy Hartfilia was still living there. The disappearance of the future Lucy was only returning to the state where she was one with Lucy, not a separate existence by using a different future. Seeing how happy I am with everyone, I really can't wait to return to this era, the future Lucy said from the bottom of her heart. Can you understand? Can you understand? Of course, Noah could understand. The only difference between Lucy and the future Lucy was that the future Lucy had experienced the painful future where all of her companions died tragically. If that future did not exist, then there was no difference between Lucy and the future Lucy. The two of them were originally the same existence. Returning to one with me in this era is what I want to do. The future Lucy looked straight at Noah and smiled. Moreover, I also want to know how it feels to be in the same guild as you. It's not just me, Noah said almost reflexively. Me, you, and everyone else, everyone in the guild is together. Only then will we be a whole. Hearing that, the future Lucy was slightly startled. Then, her expression melted and became gentle. That's right. Being with everyone is my future. The future Lucy said with a natural smile. Then, Noah, can you help me? Noah met the gentle gaze of the future Lucy, smiled, and nodded. Then, under the gaze of the future Lucy, Noah walked towards the eclipse gate step by step. Whang! A surge of mana gushed out from Noah's body. Magic lines that looked like electric wires lit up and covered Noah's arm. Noah slowly approached the solar eclipse door and lifted his head, gazing at the majestic door. Looking at this scene, the future Lucy's eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. However, in the next second, the future Lucy's expression changed drastically as she screamed in fear. "Be careful." Almost at the same time as the future Lucy screamed in fear, a figure suddenly burst out from the shadow behind Noah. It raised a hand that was filled with a shocking amount of black gas. "It's all because of you. The future I was looking forward to is completely gone." The future rogue roared hysterically. "Go to hell." As soon as the words fell, the future rogue's hand that was filled with a shocking amount of black gas was like a sharp spike. It carried a terrifying murderous aura as it pierced through the air and viciously pierced through Noah's heart. Noah acted as if he didn't notice anything and didn't feel any danger. He didn't even seem to hear the future rogue's hysterical roar as he raised his fist towards the grand gate in front of him. Bang! The fist that contained a terrifying amount of power heavily bombarded the grand gate. Amidst a loud, muffled explosion, the tall gate was blasted apart. Just like that, the spatial gate known as solar eclipse exploded, turning into a pile of rubble and rubble. At the same time, a terrifying shockwave suddenly shook with Noah as the center. The shockwave directly hit the future rogue's body and sent the future rogue, who was hysterically attacking Noah, flying. The terrifying shockwave caused the future rogue to spit out a mouthful of blood. His head tilted to the side and he completely fainted. The poor future rogue had meticulously planned for so many years, but in the end, he didn't even have the desire to be dealt with by Noah. Just like that, he was casually swept away by Noah like trash on the side of the road. Then, amidst a thick cloud of dust, the eclipse gate collapsed with a loud bang. The fragments smashed onto the ground one after another, burying the future rogue within. Phew! The future Lucy let out a huge sigh of relief. Soon after, the future Lucy found out. Her body began to emit a faint light. Immediately, the future Lucy raised her head and looked in the direction of Noah. Coincidentally, Noah also turned around and looked at the future Lucy. Then, Noah spoke softly. "See you later." The future Lucy's eyes flickered slightly. Then, an unprecedentedly cheerful smile bloomed on her face. "See you later." After leaving this sentence, the future Lucy's body turned into a burst of light particles and disappeared into the air. In the square, Lucy suddenly felt an inexplicable throbbing in her heart, causing her to look around. "Lucy?" Lisanna noticed Lucy's abnormality and asked in confusion. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Lucy scratched her cheek a little embarrassedly. "Where did Noah go?" "Noah?" Mira tilted her head and replied. "He said he had something to take care of and will be back later." "He'll be back later." Lucy smiled in relief. "Then, I'll see him later." Although she didn't know why, Lucy really wanted to see Noah now. Really, really wanted to. Chapter 1736. The next day, in the ruins of Colchis, the residents who had been evacuated by the royal army to seek refuge all returned. Looking at the ruins of Colchis, the residents naturally stirred up quite a bit of commotion, causing all sorts of rumors to start flying. However, the kingdom was prepared for this situation. They held a public speech and announced the entire incident, suppressing the rumors and stopping the residents from panicking. Only then did the people realize that so many things had happened last night. The dragon race's large-scale attack. In the revelation, the black dragon that destroyed a huge country appeared. The evil sorcerer was behind all this, trying to harm everyone in this world. And all of this was stopped by the sorcerer from the kingdom's major guilds. This was the news that the kingdom announced. As for the details, such as the purpose of the Great Demonic Battle Exhibition, the reason for the Eclipse Plan, and Princess Emerald's misjudgment, none of them were announced. It wasn't that Emerald didn't want to announce it, but if these things were announced, it would have a huge impact on many things. Just the existence of the eclipse gate, which could travel through time and space, belonged to the ranks of forbidden magic, seriously violating the order of the magic world. If the matter of the eclipse was announced, the council would intervene. By then, the kingdom and the council would have a conflict, and it was possible that there would be a huge conflict. In order to prevent this from happening, it was necessary to hide some insider information. However, with such a big incident, the council still sent people to Kuroka's to investigate. For all of this, the kingdom would take responsibility and mediate with the council, and it wouldn't involve the major guilds. Therefore, based on the current situation, there shouldn't be any more serious incidents in the future. There were two things worth mentioning. One was Emerald's surrender. Emerald hoped that her misjudgment would lead to a serious threat to the entire kingdom and the world, so she would receive the punishment she deserved to atone for her crime. However, the group of people led by the leader of the Sakura Knights, Alcadios, and the Minister of National Defense, Dayton, knew that Emerald's true purpose of opening the Eclipse Gate was to save the kingdom and the world, but they tried their best to protect her. In the end, Emerald was just being used. Although it couldn't be said that she wasn't at fault, she wouldn't be convicted. Therefore, a group of senior officials who understood Fatsue's good intentions hoped that Fatsue would reconsider. However, Fatsue, who was tortured by guilt, disagreed. She wanted to get the punishment she deserved. In the end, the matter was resolved because of Noah's words. Since everything happened because of you, you shouldn't be thinking about how to punish yourself. Instead, you should be thinking of a way to restore the capital that was destroyed to its original state. Don't tell me you intend to abandon the citizens of Kuroka's whose homes were destroyed for the sake of self-satisfaction. This sentence made Fatsue completely speechless. In the end, Emerald took on the responsibility of rebuilding Kuroka's. She vowed to rebuild Kuroka's in the shortest time possible and return a better capital to the people. At this point, this matter was finally resolved. As for the second thing worth mentioning, it was Noah's matter. Although Fatsue didn't disclose the inside information that wasn't necessary, she didn't hide the credit of Noah, who single-handedly stopped most of the dragons, defeated Aconarolia, and destroyed the future Logue's conspiracy. Instead of hiding anything, Fatsue promoted it vigorously. After releasing 10,000 dragons, Fatsue was already in despair. However, because of Noah's existence, she saw hope. Noah accepted Fatsue's request at that time and fulfilled his promise to protect the Fiori kingdom. Fatsue was very grateful to him for this. Therefore, Fatsue praised Noah's contribution and turned Noah into a perfect hero who saved the country. No one doubted Noah's contribution. This was because, during the Great Demon Battle exhibition, the power that Noah displayed that surpassed the human domain had long been known to the world. Therefore, no one doubted Noah's ability to do all this, including the council. In the end, the council decided to award Noah the title of one of the 10 Saint Magi based on Noah's contribution. The 10 Great Saint Magi were the titles that only the most outstanding and upright 10 Great Saint Magi on the continent could possess. Noah's strength was unquestionable. No one would deny that he was an outstanding sorcerer. And Noah single-handedly stopped most of the dragons, defeated the Black Dragon in Revelation, saved the Fiori kingdom, and saved the entire world. If even such a hero couldn't be called righteous, then what was? Because Noah had once blatantly killed a 10 Saint Magi, the council thought that Noah's conduct might not be as righteous as the rest of the 10 Saint Magi. However, that matter was judged as justifiable self-defense 7 years ago. If they were to bring it up now, they would undoubtedly be suspected of deliberately looking for trouble. In addition, Noah was now a hero who saved the country and received the kingdom's princess's praise and support. His popularity was at its peak. If the council were to say that he wasn't righteous enough, they would probably be spat to death by everyone in the Fiori kingdom and even the entire continent. In the end, the proposal to award Noah the title of 10 Saint Magi was passed. The council personally awarded the title of 10 Saint Magi to Noah in front of all the kingdom's citizens and sorcerers from the guild. They also announced Noah's ranking. First place. He had easily defeated Tura, who was ranked 5th. He had also defeated Acunolia, who had destroyed a huge country in a revelation. All the sorcerers recognized Noah as the most outstanding and powerful sorcerer in the continent. As a result, the council directly listed Noah as the first of the 10 Saint Magi, allowing Noah to sit in this position. Under such circumstances, Makarov simply announced that Noah would be the next guild leader of the guild, causing the reputation of Fairy Tale to soar. After obtaining victory in the Great Magic Battle exhibition, their guild leader was ranked first among the top 10 Saint Magi. The title of the strongest guild in the Kingdom of Fiore had once again returned to the hands of Fairy Tale. In order to celebrate Fairy Tale's victory, and also to celebrate Noah becoming the first of the 10 Saint Magi, and also to celebrate the kingdom being saved from a great disaster, Emerald decided to hold a ball. This ball, only the nobles and a few guilds could participate. The list of guilds that could participate was as follows: Saber-tooth, Lamia Scale, Mermaid Heel, Blue Pegasus, Cotter Cerberus, as well as the main character of the ball, Fairy Tale. The location was the only palace that could still be used, and only a part of it was destroyed. In the deep night, the ball was in full swing in the largest hall of the palace. Noah came out of the ballroom and went to the balcony. Looking at the night sky, he gently sighed. Mira also came out of the ballroom, holding Noah's arm and gently wiping his face with a handkerchief. "What's wrong? Are you tired?" "Of course I'm tired," Noah helplessly said. "From the moment I entered until just now, I was constantly being pestered." As the hero who saved the country and the first of the 10 Saint Magi, Noah was very popular among the nobles. Even the king showed his face and thanked Noah. Noah was not unfamiliar with this kind of situation, so it was not difficult for him to deal with it. However, what happened next made Noah really ashamed. They actually suddenly mentioned marriage, and in front of so many people. How afraid are they that their daughters and granddaughters will not be able to get married? Noah was speechless. "And they don't care that I have 2 fiancés, saying that it's okay to be a concubine. Those guys, did they even consider the feelings of their daughters and granddaughters?" Chapter 1737. Noah was indeed speechless. With his current situation, once he entered, the representatives of the royal family would definitely greet him. Noah had expected this. However, Noah did not expect that as they chatted, they would start asking him when he was going to get married and if he had anyone he liked. Then, there was no then. Once this topic started, the situation became unmanageable. All the royal family members were like stall owners in the market, recommending their daughters to Noah. Some even recommended their granddaughters to Noah, as if they were afraid that Noah would not be able to find a wife. When they talked about their daughters, their saliva flew everywhere and almost sprayed on Noah's face. Noah, who did not expect the situation to develop in this direction, was dumbfounded. He then quickly declared that he was a man with 2 fiancées. However, this declaration did not reduce the enthusiasm of the royal family members in the slightest. Instead, it became even more intense. 2. You have 2 fiancés. Then Lord Noah wouldn't mind having a few more, right? Please consider my daughter. Consider my granddaughter as well. It's okay to be a concubine. That's right. These were the first words that appeared after Noah said that he had 2 fiancées. Without a choice, Noah could only surrender and find an excuse to sneak out. If he did not sneak out now, Noah was really afraid that he would be like a salesman. In the end, he would be fooled by those salesmen. You don't say, those so-called royal family members definitely have the potential to be salesmen. Noah was speechless. It's such a waste to be a noble. Pfft. Mira could not help but laugh out loud. This can't be helped. With your current treatment, it's not strange that those royal family members would want to build a good relationship with you. Putting aside the fact that he was the next chairman of Fairy Tale, Noah was now a national hero in the kingdom of Fiori. If they could get close to the heroes who had saved the country, then the status of the royal family would definitely increase exponentially, and they would be sought after by the people. Moreover, Faitsue was grateful to Noah from the bottom of her heart. No matter what request Noah made for her, as long as it was within her ability, Faitsue would not refuse. In this way, Noah was equivalent to the princess's favorite person. Who wouldn't want to take this opportunity to form a good relationship with Noah? On top of that, Noah was currently ranked first among the 10 great holy mages and was publicly recognized as the #1 high mage of the continent. He was also young and unmarried. If such a famous and outstanding person could become a live-in son-in-law, it would make those nobles laugh even in their dreams. For various reasons, Noah had become extremely popular, leading to this situation. Therefore, Mira could understand why there was such a development. However, Noah was puzzled. Why do I feel like you're not talking about your own matters? Noah said to Mira in annoyance. Don't tell me you don't mind me marrying a member of the royal family's younger generation. Upon hearing this, Mira looked at Noah and said with a spurious smile, Don't worry. If I say that I mind, can you promise me that you won't marry a girl other than me and Lisanna? Noah was speechless. Noah really could not make this promise. Not to mention other things, Noah did indeed owe a lot of love debts. For example, in the world of The Black Bullet, if Elysium had kept his promise and waited for Noah for 3 years, then no matter how heartless Noah was, he would definitely respond to Elysium's feelings. For example, in the world of The God Slayer, Luo Hao claimed that she was Noah's concubine. Noah had even pushed her down. He couldn't just take advantage of her and not admit to anything, right? In addition, Wendy had once said that she wanted to be Noah's bride when she grew up. Noah's relationship with Shuanai also had a huge breakthrough. Noah could not promise Mira here. Although any man should be satisfied with having Mira and Lisanna, it did not mean that he should turn a blind eye to his own responsibilities. In Noah's opinion, he had to repay the debts he had incurred. What's more, it wasn't that Noah didn't have feelings for those girls. Noah could be said to have gone through thick and thin with Elysium. Even if it could not be said that they shared the same fate, it was impossible for him to be completely indifferent. Toward Luo Hao, Noah could be considered to have made a mistake due to a freak combination of factors. He inexplicably developed a relationship with her, and Noah wouldn't deny this relationship. Noah used to treat Wendy as a younger sister, but ever since he knew that Wendy had feelings for him, Noah felt that he had to face Wendy directly. Therefore, it was not impossible for him to have a relationship with Wendy in the future. As for Shuanai, Noah was very touched to a large extent. Think about it, an 11 or 12-year-old girl persisted for 7 whole years in order to pursue the figure of the person she yearned for, and even suffered a lot during that time. As a person who was yearned for by such a girl, who would not feel touched? At the very least, Noah was moved by Shuanai, and he had great affection for her. Then, in the dragon graveyard, he made a breakthrough in his relationship with Shuanai, which made his love for her sublimate. As such, no matter what, Noah did not want to let down that girl's feelings for him. Thus, between being unemotional and being affectionate, Noah chose the latter in the end. Under such circumstances, Noah could only look resentful. He sighed and hugged Myra's shoulder, bringing her into his embrace. Mira did not resist Noah and instead obediently snuggled into Noah's embrace. The gentleness on her face did not change at all. Chapter 1738. After that, Noah returned to the ballroom and continued to feign civility with the nobles. It couldn't be helped. The main character of this ball could be said to be Noah. No matter what, Noah couldn't be absent all the time, could he? However, in order to prevent the nobles from proposing marriage to him, Noah had Mira accompany him all the time. Seeing a charming girl by Noah's side, no matter how thick-skinned those nobles were, they wouldn't propose marriage to Noah in front of Mira. Thus, Noah could finally relax and enjoy the ball. During the process, in addition to the nobles, Noah also greeted the high mages of the various guilds. Basically, the only guilds that could participate in this ball hosted by the kingdom were those that had participated in the Great Demon Battle exhibition and stayed in Colchis to fight against the dragon race. And in these guilds, there were many people that Noah was familiar with, so it was necessary to greet them. Among them, Kara, who belonged to the Lamia scale, mentioned to Noah that she hoped to spar with him again in the future. Even Kagura, who belonged to the mermaid heel, expressed that she wanted to spar with Noah. At the beginning, Kara and Kagura were the two most powerful archmages in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition tournament. After understanding how terrifying Noah's true strength was, both of them developed a sense of competition. However, rather than saying that it was a sense of competition, it was better to say that the two just wanted to reduce the gap between them and the strongest high mage in the continent as much as possible. As for the other guilds, such as the High Mages of the Blue Pegasus and Cotter Cerberus, Noah also greeted them. After all, after returning to Magnolia, Noah would take over the position of the guild leader. It was necessary to have a good relationship with the other guilds. It was worth mentioning that before this, Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga, who belonged to the Saber-Tooth, took the initiative to greet Noah. According to Sting, after this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition and the invasion of the dragons, they had already deeply understood just how lacking they were. Previously, they claimed to be the strongest and were proud of it. Now that they thought about it, it felt like a joke. So, Sting and the others planned to turn over a new leaf and start training themselves again, hoping that one day they would be able to spar with the fairy tale again. After returning, Sting would be the same as Noah, the leader of the Saber-Tooth. Therefore, Sting sincerely hoped to have a good relationship with Noah and learn from Noah. He wanted to change the Saber-Tooth that was dominated by terrorism in the past and try to be like Noah and the others. As for Germain and Maniba, after the Great Demon Battle exhibition ended, the two directly left the Saber-Tooth. It was said that when Sting and the others felt that they were inadequate, Germain and Maniba were still immersed in the glory of being the strongest guild, sinking deeper and deeper. After that, the two sides directly clashed and even fought over it. In the end, Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga defeated Germain and Maniba, proving their will. Germain, who felt that she had no face to stay, left the guild without saying goodbye to Maniba. Actually, the young mistress is also very pitiful. The reason she became like this is because she was abused by Germain since she was young. Germain has always instilled the young mistress with the concept of being the strongest, and in order to not let the young mistress lose face, he strictly and cruelly demanded that she become stronger. That's why the young mistress became like this. Noah still remembered that at that time, Sting said these words to him with a serious face. I think that the young mistress' nature is actually not bad, so when we return, I will immediately send people to find the young mistress' whereabouts and try to make her come back and feel the warmth of the guild. As for Germain, that person is hopeless. Instead of letting him continue to harm others in the guild, I would rather he never come back. That person, let him fend for himself. After leaving these words, Sting led the Saber-Tooth archmages out of Noah's sight and greeted the people of the other guilds. From this, Noah could see. A brand new Saber-Tooth was about to be born. The ball lasted until late into the night and only ended at dawn. Because Crocus was being rebuilt, the only place where people could stay was the palace. Emerald allowed the archmages of the various guilds to stay for the night and leave the next day. The various guilds accepted Emerald's kindness. Thus, under Emerald's arrangement, the various guilds were led by their attendants to their own residences. Noah was arranged to stay in the best guest room in the palace. It was an elegant room like a luxurious suite. This room, until dawn, belonged to Noah alone. Thus, once he returned to the room and waited for the attendants to leave, Noah immediately planned to take off his formal attire, lie on the bed, and have a good sleep. However, before Noah could take off his formal attire, there was a knock on the door. Then, a voice full of nervousness rang out. Lord Noah, Shwenai. Noah immediately recognized the owner of the voice and spoke directly. Come in. My apologies. Shwenai's voice was still tinged with nervousness. Moreover, Shwenai did not come in immediately. Instead, after Noah could not help but feel suspicious, she mustered up her courage and pushed the door open. The one who appeared at the door was, of course, Shwenai. However, at this moment, Shwenai was wearing a formal attire like Noah. Noah was wearing a black tuxedo. Shwenai was wearing a white princess dress. If the two of them stood together, they would definitely look like a prince and a princess, right? In addition, on Shwenai's head, there was also a flower, which looked quite beautiful. Perhaps she did not think that she was that beautiful in person. After all, Shwenai had an inferiority complex in her personality. However, Noah still wanted to say that in terms of appearance, Shwenai was really very outstanding. In fact, Noah could not help but take a few more glances at Shwenai. Noticing Noah's gaze, Shwenai's face flushed red. Her hands were hanging in front of her body as she tugged at her skirt nervously. Her strength was so great that one was worried that Shwenai would tear her skirt apart. Noah smiled and took the initiative to break the silence. Since you're here, don't stand outside the door. Hurry and come in. Oh. Okay. Shwenai's voice was still filled with nervousness as she walked in with messy footsteps. At this moment, Noah felt a little strange. Why did it feel like Shwenai was overly nervous? What's wrong? Noah asked curiously. Is there something wrong? Shwenai did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked even more nervous as she tugged at her skirt continuously. Her face was getting redder and redder. Seeing this, Noah could not help but speak. Stop tugging, or it will really tear. Shwenai finally realized that she had been tugging at her skirt and quickly let go. However, because the movement was too big, Shwenai's high heels twisted. Ah! Shwenai suddenly exclaimed as she fell down. Noah was shocked and hurriedly stepped forward. With a soft bang, he directly hugged Shwenai. You little girl. Noah said in a reproachful tone. What are you doing? Shwenai looked at Noah, who was holding her in his arms. Her face was extremely red as though it was cooked. However, in the next second, Shwenai's face was red as she closed her eyes. She reached out and hugged Noah with trembling hands. Noah was stunned. Master Noah. Shwenai's body was trembling as she closed her eyes tightly and spoke extremely nervously. Do you still remember the promise in the dragon graveyard? Shwenai's words made Noah shudder on the spot. The promise in the dragon graveyard. Could it be that she was referring to that promise? Chapter 1739. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the room seemed to have turned pink, and the temperature seemed to have risen a little. Noah could clearly feel the trembling of her body as he hugged the beautiful girl in his arms and looked at her blushing face, yet still mustering her courage. However, it wasn't fear, but nervousness. It was imaginable how much courage Shwenai had mustered to come to Noah's room and take the initiative to mention the agreement in the dragon graveyard. Hence, Noah stretched out his hand and stroked Shwenai's slender and smooth back. He moved his mouth close to Shwenai's ear and whispered. Have you really made up your mind? Shwenai's trembling eased a little under Noah's comforting touch. However, the blush on her face didn't subside at all. Under such circumstances, Shwenai didn't even dare to lift her head to look at Noah. She only snuggled up in Noah's arms and nodded shyly. That movement seemed extremely gentle. If Noah's gaze hadn't been fixed on Xuanai's body, he wouldn't have noticed that movement at all, right? However, not only did Xuanai's behavior not weaken her charm, but it also aroused his appetite. Under the control of his emotions, Noah hugged Xuanai with more force as though he wanted to rub the girl in his arms into his body. He hugged Xuanai tightly. Due to the thick coat that Xuanai usually wore, it was difficult to see how good her figure was with the naked eye. Today, Xuanai was wearing a princess dress, which accentuated her good figure. Noah, who hugged Xuanai tightly, could clearly feel the softness and fullness of the girl's body in his arms. Hence, Noah said in the end, "If you want to go back on your words, it's still not too late." Xuanai didn't say anything. She only buried her head in Noah's arms with a blushing face. Due to her nervousness, she hugged Noah tighter and tighter, silently expressing her determination. Now, what reason did Noah have to reject her? Amidst Xuanai's exclamation, Noah abruptly carried the girl in his arms in a princess carry and threw her directly onto the bed. With another cry of surprise, a pure white princess dress was thrown into the air and fell to the ground. Not long after, Noah's black tuxedo also landed on the ground. A sleepless night had just begun. The sky gradually brightened up. Outside the windows of the luxurious suite, the warm sun shone into the room and onto the red-carpeted floor. There, pitch-black and pure white gowns were scattered all over the ground, but they didn't give off a dirty and messy feeling. Instead, they seemed especially warm. Noah opened his eyes in a daze, and his consciousness began to gradually wake up. Almost instinctively, Noah reached out his hand and subconsciously wanted to hug the girl who was lying in his arms before he fell asleep last night. However, when he reached out his hand, Noah hugged nothing, which made him slightly startled and his mind instantly woke up. When he woke up, Noah realized that, other than himself, the girl who was supposed to be present was nowhere to be seen, leaving only Noah lying in bed. Xuanai. Noah was a little surprised and puzzled as he sat up. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Outside the door, Xuanai, who had already dressed neatly and changed into her usual clothes, slowly walked in with breakfast in her hands. After seeing Noah get up, she was first surprised for a moment, then her pretty face blushed slightly. She lowered her head like a small animal and said shyly, "Noah." "Master Noah, Xuanai." Noah breathed a sigh of relief without a trace and then put on a straight face. "Where did you go?" I went to help Master Noah prepare breakfast." Xuanai still lowered her head and said softly, "However, the palace is too big and I don't know where the kitchen is. It took me a lot of effort to find a servant in the palace to lead the way, so I wasted a lot of time. Are you going to help me prepare breakfast?" Noah scratched his cheek. "Can't you just leave that kind of thing to the servants in the palace?" But I want to prepare breakfast for Master Noah." Xuanai looked up uneasily and secretly looked at Noah. Can't I?" Looking at Xuanai's uneasy look, Noah couldn't help but pat his forehead and scold himself in his heart. For this girl who had low self-esteem, after last night's entanglement, she would definitely have all kinds of uneasiness. Noah could even imagine the scene where Xuanai tried her best to serve him well so that he wouldn't hate her. In this way, if Noah showed even the slightest bit of resistance to Xuanai's good intentions, it would only make her more uneasy. Noah hurriedly said, "No, I haven't tried breakfast made by Xuanai yet, but I'm looking forward to it." Is that so?" Xuanai breathed a sigh of relief, but then became nervous again. "But I'm not sure if it's to your liking. I'm not picky about food, so why would it be to my liking?" Noah laughed out loud. "Anyway, since you've already made it, bring it over." Xuanai's expression became a little more cheerful as she nodded repeatedly and brought the breakfast to the bedside. After placing it on the bedside, she said to Noah, "Then, let me help Master Noah put on his clothes first. She wants to serve me even while putting on my clothes." Well, it wasn't like Noah hadn't been served like this before. Mira and Lisanna often helped Noah like this before, so there was nothing to resist. Thus, Noah very straightforwardly lifted the blanket and got off the bed. Seeing that Noah didn't avoid arousing suspicion and was completely naked, Xuanai's pretty face turned red with a bang. Seeing this, Noah was amused. "It's not like I haven't seen it before, why are you so shy?" Master Noah." Xuanai immediately became even more bashful. That delicate appearance made Noah have the feeling of having an appetite for her again. Chapter 1740. Fiori Kingdom, Magnolia. Look! That's the sorcerer from Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale is back. You're back. When the group of magic shooters from Fairy Tale walked into Magnolia, all the residents on the streets were surprised and cheered loudly, giving the returning magic shooters a fright. Then, many residents rushed out from the buildings and streets, surrounding both sides and cheering loudly. Oh! Cheers resounded throughout the entire space, causing the group of Fairy Tale's magic shooters to come to their senses. Then, such noises rang out from all directions. Good job, Fairy Tale. He actually saved the kingdom. Good job. You are the glory of Magnolia. Congratulations to all of you for winning the Great Demon Battle Exhibition Tournament. Congratulations. Cheers echoed throughout the crowd, telling the members of Fairy Tale what was going on. The residents of Magnolia swarmed over and surrounded the two sides of the street, cheering loudly. Mikhail, Wakaba, and the other members who had stayed behind for 7 years were moved to tears. I never thought that after 7 years, would be able to enjoy this feeling of being supported again. Exactly. In the 7 years that the main members had been frozen together with Heavenly Wolf Island, when had Fairy Tale ever been so popular? The glory of Fairy Tale, which was always at the bottom every year, had long been forgotten by the people after 7 years. All that was left was pity and contempt. Today, Fairy Tale had finally returned to the #1 stage of the kingdom, becoming the glory of Magnolia once again. After 7 years of glory, the members who had stayed behind for 7 years were moved. At the sight of such a group of old members, Noah and the others exchanged glances with each other before revealing a smile. Everyone, Noah stepped forward and said to the members who had stayed behind for 7 years. Thank you for your hard work. The group of members who had stayed behind wiped their noses. If they didn't do this, they would have snot flowing out of their noses. The ordeal is over. Now, we only need to enjoy the rewards of our hard work. Noah clapped his hands and smiled. It's rare to hear cheers. Let's enjoy this glory and go home. The group of Fairy Tale magic shooters raised their hands and cheered loudly. Then, amidst the cheers of the residents of Magnolia, the group of magic shooters waved at the surrounding residents and slowly walked towards the direction of the Fairy Tale as if they were on a parade. The cheers lasted until they reached Fairy Tale's guild building. When they arrived at the entrance of the guild building, the residents of Magnolia dispersed reluctantly and allowed them to return home. Looking at the castle-like building, Xuanai muttered. Is this the Fairy Tale? Although she had joined Fairy Tale, this was the first time Xuanai came to the building and saw what it looked like. When she thought about how this was Noah's home since he was young, Xuanai felt excited and complicated. If it weren't for the fact that she had mistaken Noah's guild, Xuanai would have joined the guild when she was young. In the end, fate played a trick on her. Xuanai was delayed for 7 years before she finally came to the guild where the person she longed to be. Looking at the majestic guild building, how could Xuanai not feel excited and complicated? What's wrong? Why do you look like you're about to cry? She held Xuanai's hand and poked her cheeks. This is where you'll be staying for the rest of your life. You can't always look like that. I know. Xuanai suppressed her complicated feelings and looked at the building again. I just feel like I'm dreaming. When she heard that Noah was killed by a Conarolia on Celestial Wolf Island, Xuanai thought that she would never be able to fulfill her little dream of joining the same guild as the person she longed to be. Now that her dream had come true, Xuanai felt like she was dreaming. This isn't a dream. Mira held Xuanai's other hand with a smile that could heal her heart. We'll always be together from now on. Yes. Xuanai nodded heavily. His expression was happier than ever. Noah, who had been observing the direction of Xuanai, could not help but laugh softly. Soon after, he said to everyone, "Don't just stand there, let's go in." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, and in the end, they all rushed towards the guild together. Bang! Leading the way, Naz kicked open the door and roared as he rushed in. Sure enough, the guild is the best. Bastard! Makarov yelled in exasperation. Doors aren't meant to be kicked. However, the guild members who were in a state of excitement had already ignored Makarov's words and rushed into the guild one after another. We're finally back. The banquet is starting. The banquet is starting. Hurry up and bring the wine. And the meat. Mira. Lisanna. Hurry up. Both Mira and Lisanna could only smile helplessly. Coming. Don't rush us. The two girls entered the guild and under the support of the guild members, they entered the bar counter and began to prepare the wine and dishes. Those guys. Noah was also helpless. Xuanai, on the other hand, was at a loss as if she didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Noah shrugged and said meaningfully, "Once those guys start making trouble, there's no end to it. I don't know if Mira and Lisanna can handle it." Hearing this, Xuanai immediately understood. I'll go help too. After saying that, Xuanai hurriedly ran in the direction of Mira and Lisanna. In the blink of an eye, only Noah was left standing in front of the guild's door. Looking at the noisy guild members, Noah's gaze swept across his companions and family members one by one. Naz was quarreling with Gray. Gadjalo actually ran to the stage to play the guitar. Before the guild becomes busy, I have to hurry up and finish the wedding. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Noah. Leave for a month? Alusha asked in surprise. Now, is there anything that requires you to spend an entire month to settle? Although the rest did not speak, they had the same surprise as Alusha. After all, Noah was the first of the 10 great Saint Magus masters and was recognized as the #1 magic shooter in the continent. He was an existence that could single-handedly block a Conarolia and 10,000 WIRMS. With such a degree of power, what else would require Noah to spend so much time to settle? Noah naturally understood the doubts of his companions. However, Noah did not say it directly. Instead, he smiled faintly. Why? Are you guys still worried that something will happen to me? No, it's not to that extent. Gray folded his arms and looked straight at Noah. I just want to say that if there's anything that you need our help with, you can leave it to us. The rest nodded and expressed their agreement. Well, no matter what, you're now the president. You can't let the president solve everything, right? Lucy also said kindly. If it's something that we can handle, then it's better to leave it to us. Hearing everyone's words, Noah felt a little warm in his heart. Thus, Noah said so. All right, it's not a big deal. I'll definitely be able to handle it. Noah spread his hands. However, before that, I want to complete the agreement that I've made so that I won't have any regrets in the future. At this point, Noah suddenly smiled. Of course, the agreement I'm referring to is not only to marry the person I love. Not only to marry the person you love. Everyone was stunned. Noah turned his gaze and looked in Naz's direction. His dark and deep eyes flashed with some light. What? Naz suddenly felt strange. Why are you looking at me like that? Naz. The corners of Noah's mouth slowly raised. Do you still remember the agreement that we had to fight after we became S-rank archmages together? This sentence made Naz's pair of eyes light up. The rest of Noah's companions more or less understood what Noah meant, and they were all surprised. Since then, it has been 7 years in this era. Noah looked at Naz closely. Although none of us became S-rank archmages, I directly became one of the 10 great saint archmages and succeeded the position of president. After your cultivation, your strength has also increased to the point where you can become an S-rank archmage. Now, it's time to fulfill the original agreement. Naz's eyes suddenly became serious, and he grinned with excitement and hot-bloodedness. In other words, Noah, are you finally going to fight with me? Of course, not now. Noah smiled slightly and said so. The time is set to be after my wedding and before I leave. After the wedding, before leaving. Naz lowered his head and considered with an unprecedentedly serious expression. At this time, Naz stretched out one hand and grabbed his other arm tightly. A smile appeared on his face. Well, I also need some time to prepare. Naz's words surprised the surrounding companions. When did Naz prepare for a duel? But this time, Naz actually said that he needed time to prepare. What did this prove? It proved how serious Naz was about this duel. Noah, on the other hand, stared at Naz's right arm that was tightly gripped by his hand with a meaningful gaze. Naz was naturally very serious about this duel. However, if he needed time to prepare, did it mean that Naz had some hidden cards? As soon as this idea appeared, it had to be said that even Noah began to look forward to it. So, Noah made a prompt announcement. Well, before I leave, let's have a good fight. Yo! I'm burning. Naz laughed out loud and rushed in the direction of the door. In that case, I have to hurry up and prepare, hubby. Isaac. Habby immediately flapped the wings on his back and shot out like an arrow, catching up to Naz. In the next second, Naz and hubby rushed out of the guild and soon disappeared without a trace. Until then, the crowd was in an uproar. The duel between Noah and Naz. Who will win? For that kind of thing, it's obvious that Noah will win. That's true, his companions in the guild were noisy like this. Only Alusha and Gray stared in the direction where Naz left, and their expressions were not very relaxed. Hey, Noah, you have to be careful, Gray said. That guy actually said that he needed to prepare, he must be hiding something. I have a feeling, Alusha said the same. Your duel with Naz will definitely not be as predictable as everyone said. I understand. Noah looked in the direction where Naz disappeared, and his eyes flickered. I know better than any of you that Naz is definitely not an opponent to be underestimated. Chapter 1742. In the end, because of the marriage and the duel happening at the same time to Noah, the entire guild was in an uproar from morning till night. Of course, even if nothing happened, the guild would always be this lively. However, with the marriage and the duel happening, the guild was undoubtedly several times livelier than usual. In Noah's opinion, his companions in the guild were actually a bunch of excited people who wanted to see the world in chaos. That was why the whole guild became so noisy after Noah announced these two things. As for Makarov, after Noah announced that he was going to get married in a week, he downed a few barrels of wine. Noah didn't know what Makarov's stomach was made of to drink like that, but Noah also knew that Makarov was just too happy. His grandson was finally going to get married. As a grandfather, how could Makarov not be happy? Hence, after downing a few barrels of wine, Makarov looked for Noah again, patted his chest, and said this. "Aren't you going to look for a wedding house? Leave this matter to me." After leaving this sentence, Makarov directly slipped away and disappeared. Later, Noah found out that Makarov had dug out all his savings and spent a lot of money to buy a relatively luxurious house. That house was the wedding house that Makarov was going to give to Noah. Originally, Noah had planned to rely on his current reputation to find the most difficult and most rewarding task. After obtaining it, he would use the reward to buy a house and prepare for the wedding. Now, since Makarov had taken care of the task of finding a house, Noah's only task left was to prepare for the wedding. However, regarding the wedding preparation, Mira and Lisanna had taken care of everything. "You are now the guild leader. There are many things in the guild waiting for you to do," Mira said gently to Noah. "So, about the wedding preparation, let us do it. I have been wanting to have a wedding for a long time. I have many ideas in my mind," Lisanna said with a face full of excitement. "Brother Noah, you can't fight with me, okay?" Seeing that Mira and Lisanna were eager, Noah didn't want to dampen their spirits. He could only find Xuanai and discuss the wedding with her. Noah came back to finish all the things that needed to be done and not leave himself with any regrets. Thus, the matter of Fairy Tale becoming the #1 guild in the kingdom of Fiore had to be dealt with. The wedding of Mira and Lisanna had to be dealt with, and the duel with Naz also had to be dealt with. Naturally, after the breakthrough in his relationship with Xuanai, Noah couldn't ignore Xuanai. In other words, Noah planned to let Yuno marry him and become his bride. Who knew? Regarding this matter, Xuanai expressed the greatest degree of all. "You can't. Lord Noah," Xuanai said a bit anxiously to Noah. "Lord Mira and Lord Lisanna have already discussed the marriage with you for so long." Noah's words elicited a reaction from Ashtar, who had been silent the whole time. Not only this world. Ashtar's mysterious eyes turned to Noah. Master also wants to go to other worlds and work hard to not leave behind any regrets. Noah was startled. He didn't expect Ashtar, who liked to throw tantrums, to suddenly say such words. Not to mention Noah, even Athena was surprised. "Holy Sword Spirit, it's rare to hear such rational words from you." "I'm just saying what's in my heart." Ashtar's expression didn't change at all. He lowered his head and said softly. "But, when I see Master working hard to not leave behind any regrets, I'm also thinking if I should do something." This time, even Noah was surprised. "Ashtar?" Noah sat up and looked at Ashtar. "Is there something you want to do too?" Ashtar was silent for a while before he spoke. "A long time ago, my master and I destroyed the Demon King together. Now, the Demon King has appeared again. So, I was wondering if I should go and settle things with them." Without a doubt, the people Ashtar mentioned could only be Lotus and Lustia. "I didn't expect Ashtar to be thinking about the same thing as me." Noah reached out his hand and patted Ashtar's head, but his eyes were looking outside the window. "I'm also thinking that after I'm done with this world, I'll return to the Elven world and settle things with Lotus." This was the next thing Noah wanted to do. After all, it could be said that Noah was the one who changed Lotus' fate. No matter what, Noah had the obligation to settle things with her. Perhaps, because Ashtar saw through Noah's thoughts, he took the initiative to mention this matter. "No matter what, I'm still Master's sword," Ashtar said as usual. "Everything will be as you wish." Noah smiled and continued to stroke Ashtar's head. Together with Athena, they looked at the night sky outside the window and enjoyed this rare moment of tranquility. Chapter 1743. After that, just as Noah had predicted, because Fairy Tale had regained the glory of being the #1 guild in the Fiore kingdom, many magic shooters came to join the guild the next day. Noah did not accept all the magic shooters who came to join the guild because of its reputation. Instead, he went through a series of tests. The content of the tests was not strength. In fact, whether or not one had strength was secondary. For Fairy Tale, the most important thing was not strength, but compatibility. At the very least, Noah did not want his guild, which was full of positive energy, to be turned into a swamp by a motley crew. Therefore, Noah accepted all the magic shooters who were compatible with the members of the guild. However, those with bad natures were all mercilessly thrown out of the door by Noah. He did not show them any mercy at all. This method naturally caused a lot of criticism in the beginning. However, there was one time when a group of magic shooters who were rejected by Noah decided to take advantage of the night to sneak into the guild to wreak havoc as revenge. The next day, all the residents of Magnolia found out. These guys were stripped of all their clothes and hung in the city center for the whole city to see. There was also a recording crystal beside them that recorded the whole process of these guys trying to wreak havoc on Fairy Tale. It was only now that everyone knew the criteria for Fairy Tale selection. They no longer had any objections to it and even started to promote it, causing Fairy Tale's popularity to become more and more prosperous. Apart from that, commissions from all over the kingdom were gradually finding their way to Fairy Tale, allowing the guild's career to return to its peak, perhaps even surpassing it. Under such circumstances, in addition to the 30 million J reward for winning the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, the guild's operations were finally on the right track. Just like that, a week passed in the blink of an eye as the whole Fairy Tale gradually got on the right track. Today was the day of Noah's wedding. Wow! In a room in Strauss' house, Lucy and Snow, who were dressed in bridesmaid attire, looked at the two girls standing in front of them and couldn't help but gasp in amazement. She was wearing a wedding dress that was as white as snow. They were holding extremely beautiful flowers in their hands. Mira and Lisanna stood side by side in front of a full-body mirror. Looking at themselves in the mirror, their delicate faces looked a little dazed, but they couldn't hide the happiness between their brows no matter how hard they tried. Lisanna, in particular, looked at herself in the mirror in her wedding dress, her eyes a little moist. Big Sister Mira. Lisanna's eyes were slightly red as she spoke. Am I dreaming? Looking at Lisanna like this, Mira smiled knowingly. She reached out and gently hugged Lisanna, patting her sister's back as she spoke softly. Lisanna will become the most beautiful bride today. This is definitely not a dream. Unlike the gentle and caring Mira, Lisanna's maiden's heart. Myra's greatest wish was to live happily with Noah for the rest of their lives. Lisanna's greatest wish was to become Noah's bride. One yearned for the days to come. The other yearned for the moment when she became the bride of her sweetheart. Although the things they yearned for were different, there was no doubt that these two sisters were in love with Noah. Today was the wedding of these two sisters and Noah. Lisanna, who had always dreamed of becoming Noah's bride, had finally waited for this day to come. Thus, looking at herself in the mirror in her wedding dress, Lisanna couldn't help but feel the emotions in her heart. Her eyes really did turn red. Alright, today is a happy day. You can't have this expression. Mira cupped Lisanna's face and gently wiped away some of the tears in her sister's eyes. However, her own eyes were also a little wet. It's okay. Lisanna will definitely be happy in the future. Sister promises you. Yes. Lisanna nodded heavily and smiled. The same goes for Sister Mira. You will definitely be happy with me. That's right. Mira smiled gently. We will definitely be happy together. Seeing the Strauss sisters hugging each other tightly to vent the emotions in their hearts, Lucy and Shirley looked at each other and smiled. All right. It's not like you two have to separate. In the future, you will always live together. Don't make it seem like you are going to separate. Lucy clapped her hands and said with a smile. Noah is already waiting for you. Brides, don't let your groom wait too long. That's right. Shirley nodded. Lord Noah definitely doesn't want to see Lady Mira and Lady Lasana's eyes red. You two can't cry. Mira and Lisanna looked at each other and smiled. They nodded and separated from each other. Then, Lucy and Shirley stepped forward at the same time and each of them held the hands of the two brides. Let's go. Mira and Lisanna tightened the bouquet in their hands and took a deep breath. After a while, they nodded. At the same time, in one of the guild's rooms, Noah was also prepared. Phew, wearing a suit as white as snow, Noah constantly checked if there was anything messy on his body while nervously asking his companions in the room. This should be fine, right? This is the 4th time you've asked this, Gray said helplessly. It's really fine. It's neat enough. It won't be embarrassing. Apart from Gray, Laxus was also present. How surprising. Raxus made a rare teasing remark. I didn't expect you to be nervous. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but smile bitterly. It had to be said that Noah was more or less nervous. In the past, let alone a small wedding, Noah had experienced even bigger occasions. However, for some reason, at this time, Noah couldn't help but feel nervous. Well, after all, it's a matter of a lifetime. Gray spread his hands and said to Noah. Even if it's you, it's inevitable that you'll be nervous, right? Maybe that's the reason. Noah adjusted his collar a little, then seemed to think of something and looked at Gray. By the way, did you find Naz? Since the last time in the guild, Naz had threatened to prepare for the duel with Noah and rushed out of the guild. This guy had disappeared for a whole week, completely disappearing without a trace. In order to find Naz, everyone went to his house and even asked around the city. In the end, they found out that Naz didn't return home at all this week. Instead, he seemed to have left Magnolia and entered a deep mountain. In order not to let Naz miss his wedding, Noah had asked some of the new members in the guild to go to the mountains to find him. Unfortunately, it seemed that they didn't find him at all. That guy, his mind is probably full of the duel with you now. How can he still remember your wedding? Gray curled his lips. He should have forgotten long ago, right? Well, he's Naz after all. Laxus said so generously. If not, then he's not Naz. Really? Noah said with regret. In other words, Naz won't come to my wedding, right? For that idiot, a wedding is obviously not as important as a meal. Gray patted Noah on the shoulder. You don't have to take it to heart. I know, I just feel that it's a pity. Noah smiled slightly. Besides, Naz is now carefully preparing for the duel with me. I have nothing to complain about. That's good. Laxus glanced at the clock on the wall and said. It's about time. It's time to go. Hearing this, Noah took a deep breath like Mira and Lisanna and then nodded. Then let's go. Chapter 1744. In Magnolia, there was a church. The size of the church was considered large, so the residents of Magnolia called it the cathedral. However, the location of the cathedral was a little remote, and it was not very lively on normal days. Sometimes, not many people would go there. But today, the cathedral seemed to be quite lively. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. The melodious sound of the bell echoed throughout the entire cathedral. At this moment, the sound of cannon salutes rang out. At this moment, the people were cheering. In such a lively atmosphere, in front of the cathedral, the sorcerers from Fairy Tale were all dressed in formal attire. Each of them had a smile on their faces, and they held wine glasses in their hands as they laughed and chatted with each other. In addition to the sorcerers from Fairy Tale, many of the residents of Magnolia had also heard the news and gathered around the periphery of the cathedral to watch. It caused a lot of chatter, and it was very lively. In fact, this kind of liveliness could have been multiplied several times, or even dozens of times. After all, the person getting married today was not an ordinary person. He was a hero who saved the country a week ago, and received the title of one of the 10 saint sorcerers, the strongest sorcerer in the continent. He saved the entire Fiori kingdom, and even the entire world. He defeated Iconaroglia and single-handedly stopped a large number of dragons. The sorcerers of the other guilds in the kingdom were in awe of him. The princess of the kingdom was in awe of him. If Noah really wanted to hold a grand wedding, then it would not be strange if all the famous guilds in the kingdom, or even the princess herself, came to congratulate him, let alone the sorcerers of fairy tale. However, Mira and Lisanna did not insist on the size of the wedding. Whether the wedding was grand or not was not a very important matter to the sisters. The two girls only wanted a beautiful wedding, and it was enough for them to become Noah's bride with the blessings of everyone. Therefore, only the members of Fairy Tale were invited to attend today's wedding. Of course, generally speaking, it was enough to invite an entire guild to a wedding. After all, a large magic guide guild would have at least hundreds of members, or even thousands of members. Fairy Tale, on the other hand, had just regained the glory of being the #1 guild in the Fiori kingdom, but the number of members in the guild had already exceeded 300. With so many people attending the wedding, it was more than enough. In addition, the residents of Magnolia came to liven things up, making the wedding quite lively. Congratulations, President Makarov. Congratulations, congratulations. My grandson is finally married. And he married 2 at once. You're really capable. One by one, the magic shooters toasted and congratulated Makarov, who was also dressed in formal attire. Makarov's old face was full of smiles as he laughed unreservedly while returning the toasts. Glass after glass of wine was poured into Makarov's stomach, causing Makarov's face to turn red. However, Makarov didn't mind at all. Instead, he drank more and more happily, causing people to worry that this old man would pass out drunk before the bride and groom arrived. At least, Mikhail and Wakaba expressed their worries. I say, President, no, it should be the previous president, shouldn't you stop? Mikhail advised. Your grandson hasn't arrived yet, and the wedding has just begun. If you pass out drunk now, what will happen later? Yes, yes. Kana hugged a wine barrel as she fiercely gulped down wine while speaking drunkenly. You can get drunk at any time, but not today. Former President, it's time for you to restrain yourself. Before saying that, shouldn't you put down that ridiculously large wine barrel in your hands? Wakabe couldn't help but complain. You're not convincing at all, right? Well, don't worry, I'm fine. Makarov patted his chest and said with his head held high. Before I see my great-grandson's face, I, Makarov, won't die like this. No, 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 I'm just telling you to stop drinking, not to die. Mikhail said loudly. So to you, not drinking is the same as dying. It's fine, it's fine. Makarov didn't mind Mikhail's words at all. He continued to drink happily, and his face became redder and redder. Seeing this scene, even Wendy expressed her worry. President Makarov, are you sure you're fine? I feel that if he continues to drink like this, there will definitely be a problem. Levi sighed. By the way, why aren't the bride and groom here yet? I heard that they're on their way. Julian quickly said. They should be here soon. Hurry up and end this wedding. Gadulus said with some boredom. Noah, that guy. Not only did he prepare for the wedding, but he didn't prepare any iron. What kind of banquet is this? Is that so? Lily was speechless. I don't think anyone would prepare iron for a wedding banquet. As the crowd continued to clamor, at a certain moment, outside the cathedral, an extremely luxurious carriage slowly drove in amidst the clear sound of wheels. Seeing the carriage, the crowd's expression brightened, and they shouted loudly. "They're here, they're here. The bride and groom are here. They're finally here. Whoa, whoa, whoa." Continuous cheers began to ring out, causing the saluting cannons to be pulled and set off in mid-air. Balloons were also released into the air, floating towards the clouds. The scene was quite beautiful. Then, under the crowd's cheers and firecrackers, the luxurious carriage stopped in front of the cathedral. The next moment, the door of the carriage opened. Inside, Noah, who was dressed in a pure white suit, walked down. He raised his head and looked around. A smile slowly appeared on his face. "Oh, oh, 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 oh." The crowd cheered loudly. Even the residents of Magnolia cheered and gave Noah their best wishes. Noah raised his hand and waved at the people around him. Then, he turned around and extended his hand into the carriage. Both of her hands, which were wearing white lace gloves made of silk, immediately reached out from the carriage and placed them in Noah's hands. Under Noah's lead, she alighted from the carriage. Of course, the people who came out were Mira and Lisanna. Oh, looking at the two girls who were wearing a pure white wedding dress and holding bright flowers in their hands, with an unconcealable smile on their faces and some shyness and nervousness on their faces, many people in the crowd let out sighs of amazement. When were women at their most beautiful? Everyone had their own opinion on this question. However, everyone present had the same thought in their minds at this moment. That was, at this moment, Mira and Lisanna, in their pure white wedding gowns, were undoubtedly the most beautiful in their lives. Mira was the most popular top model. When she wore a wedding gown, she was so beautiful that people could not take their eyes off her. Lisanna did not have Mira's gentleness and sweetness, but she was more pretty, cute, and mischievous. When she wore a wedding gown, she was equally beautiful. The most beautiful appearance of the two sisters was displayed in front of everyone. How could they not be stunned? In response, Mira and Lisanna only held one of Noah's hands each. Under Noah's lead, they walked along the red carpet, step by step, with smiles on their faces. There was only one person at the front of the red carpet. That person was Makarov. The blush on Makarov's face had disappeared without a trace, as if his performance had been fake. He looked at the couple walking slowly towards him, his face full of gratification. In this way, Noah brought the two brides to Makarov. Their eyes met. "You don't have to say anything." Under Noah's gaze, Makarov said with a calm smile. "Grandfather is proud of you." With that, Noah finally couldn't hold back the emotions in his heart. He couldn't help but close his eyes as tears rolled down his cheeks. Without a doubt, that was the only time in his life that Noah shed tears. Of course, no one had seen Noah like that. However, those who saw Noah shed tears weren't surprised at all. Instead, they smiled as if they understood. Looking at Noah's tearful appearance, Makarov held back his tears and stepped forward with a smile. "Today is the day you get married. You can't face everyone with this expression." "I'm not crying." Noah didn't wipe away his tears. For the first time, he acted like a stubborn child and said this. "It's just the wind, you child." Makarov couldn't help but laugh. Then, he looked at Mira and Lisanna and said softly, "I'll leave Noah in your hands." Mira and Lisanna tightened their grip on Noah's arm. Under Makarov's gaze, they nodded heavily and said in unison, "We will take good care of Noah, President." "Are you still calling me President?" Makarov smiled. "You should change the way you address me." Hearing this, Mira and Lisanna both blushed and lowered their heads. "Grandfather." "Good. Good." Makarov laughed out loud and shouted at Noah. Noah, you have to treat your two brides well. If I find out that you bullied them, I won't let you off. Do you understand? I know. Noah held Myra's and Lasana's hands tightly as he looked at his two brides and declared, I will definitely make them happy. Mira and Lasana's faces bloomed with smiles. Makarov nodded in satisfaction. He looked around, spread his arms, and shouted to the people around him. Everyone! Please give our warmest blessings to our bride and groom. As soon as he finished speaking. Clap, 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 clap. A burst of warm applause sounded from the surroundings. The group of magic shooters belonging to Fairy Tale were also shouting non-stop. Noah! Don't bully our Mira-chan. Don't bully Lasana-chan either. Remember to be happy. Bastard! Damn it! I want to get married. Save it! Ha 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 ha! Kind laughter and shouts sounded from the surroundings. Along with the warm applause, they were dedicated to Noah. Noah, Mira, and Lisana looked at each other and smiled tacitly. Immediately, Noah let go of Mira and Lasana's hands. He took a step forward and came to Makarov's side. He turned around and looked at his two brides. At the side, Wendy was holding a box with a nervous look on her face as she walked to Noah's side under everyone's gaze. Brother Noah. Wendy raised her head and looked at Noah with a cute smile. In the box in Wendy's hands, there were 2 diamond rings. Both Mira and Lasana's gazes were immediately drawn to the 2 rings. Unlike the engagement ring, this time, Noah had specially asked someone to make a new wedding ring. Compared to the 2 engagement rings that were made in a hurry before, the 2 wedding rings in front of him were much better in terms of workmanship and quality. The exquisite shape and the resplendent diamonds attracted the hearts of all the girls present. So beautiful. Lucy couldn't help but murmur. Yes. Xuan I agreed softly. It really is beautiful. Even Alusha couldn't help but praise. As for Lebby, Kana, and Julianne, they had already begun to whisper to each other, praising the 2 rings almost non-stop. Naturally, Mira and Lisana were also captivated by the 2 wedding rings. Ahem. Makarov pretended to be serious and coughed. All right, let's have our brides exchange rings. Noah turned his head and took out the 2 rings from the box in Wendy's hands. He smiled at Mira and Lisana. My brides, please stretch out your hands. Mira and Lisana subconsciously extended their hands to Noah. Holding the hands of the 2 beautiful brides, Noah gently put the wedding rings on their ring fingers. Warm applause rang out once more. Mira and Lisana retracted their rings and couldn't help but throw themselves into Noah's arms. Noah hugged his 2 brides tightly. Amidst the warm applause, he felt a warmth in his heart. At that moment, Noah, Mira, and Lisana had finally come to fruition and become a true husband and wife. Chapter 1746. Chirp, 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 chirp. When the sun rose into the sky and illuminated the land, the melodious chirping of birds echoed under the clouds, announcing the beginning of a beautiful morning. Under the bright sunlight, Magnolia was still sitting on the ground as usual. On the streets, people came and went. Beside the stalls, people were making a lot of noise. Shouts and noises rang out from the relatively large city. Mixed with the melodious chirping of birds, it actually gave people a sense of tranquility. In such a magnolia, on a busy street facing the sea, there was a house. The size of the house was comparable to a small villa, and it looked quite luxurious. At least, it wouldn't be strange if there were maids and servants coming in and out of the house. However, in fact, there were only 3 people living in this house. Although there were only 3 people, these 3 people were newlyweds. In the room of the newlyweds, the two young girls who had just become wives woke up early in the morning. They glanced at their husbands who were sleeping next to them, and then they tiptoed out of the bed at the same time. They went out of the room and entered the kitchen, and began to busy themselves with sounds and laughter. Not long after, Noah also woke up amidst the waves of sweet laughter. He yawned and put on his clothes. After which, he stretched his waist and walked out of the room. Gotcha! The sound of the door opening attracted the attention of the two sisters who were busy in the kitchen. Brother Noah. Lisanna was the first to greet Noah. Good morning. Good morning. Noah returned the greeting, but still looked a little sleepy. Good morning, Mira. Good morning. Mira chuckled softly and said in a gentle and considerate manner. The breakfast will be ready soon, just wait for a while. It's all right, the guild is gradually getting on the right track. Even if I don't stay in the guild all the time, there won't be any problems, Noah said lazily as he walked towards the sofa and sat down. So, you guys just have to take it slow. Mira looked at Noah's lazy expression and smiled helplessly. On the other hand, Lisanna puffed up her cheeks and said with some dissatisfaction. Big brother Noah, have you become a little lazy recently? Who's to blame for this? Noah said grumpily. Whether it's cleaning or cooking, all the household chores are taken care of by you two sisters. Even when I take a bath at night, you two will help me run the bath water. I have nothing to do at home, so how can I not be lazy? But don't you have a lot of things to deal with in the guild? Mira asked, chuckling. We were worried that you would be exhausted, so we didn't want you to be busy. Besides, family matters are what we should do. Big brother Noah, you don't know how lucky you are. Lisanna raised the spatula in her hand, looking indignant. With me and Sister Mira as your wives, what's there to be dissatisfied with? I've never said that I was dissatisfied, right? Noah said with a bitter smile. Even if there's something I'm dissatisfied with, it's not because you two are so virtuous. Instead, shouldn't you change the way you call him, Big Brother Noah? What does it matter? Big Brother Noah is Big Brother Noah, Lisanna said matter-of-factly. I've been calling him that since I was young. Is there a problem? There's a big problem. Noah rolled his eyes. If others know that I let my wife call me Big Brother, how will they look at me? Is that so? Lisanna tilted her head and asked in puzzlement. But they're used to it. Pfft. Mira couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she couldn't help but say this. Besides, even if others look at Noah differently, it'll still be interesting. Just like that, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna went about their own business while casually chatting about their daily lives. That scene gave people the feeling that the three of them had lived together for a long time. However, there was nothing strange about it. Although it was Noah's first time living with Mira and Lisanna, the three of them were childhood playmates who grew up together. They knew each other very well, and there was no need for them to be afraid. Furthermore, Mira and Lisanna were biological sisters who had been living together since they were young. There was no place that they were unfamiliar with. Therefore, there was no sense of awkwardness when the three of them lived together. Furthermore, Mira and Lisanna had been living together with Elfman in the first place. To Mira and Lisanna, it was just a change of residence. Furthermore, the person living with them had changed from a younger brother to a husband. Looking at the two newlyweds who were busy in the kitchen, Noah smiled. After a moment of silence, he suddenly spoke. I plan to leave the guild for a period of time tomorrow. During this period, the two of you have to take good care of yourselves. That one sentence made Mira and Lisanna stop what they were doing. Mira and Lisanna had already known that Noah planned to leave for a period of time to settle some matters. Hence, the two of them weren't too surprised. As for being reluctant to part with him, that wasn't it. After all, as a magic shooter, there were times when he had to leave for a long period of time to complete a mission. Take Kildas for example, he would usually leave for 2 to 3 years. Just like a homeless child, there was no way to keep him. Noah only planned to leave for a month. As a magic shooter, it was considered a short period of time. Hence, Mira and Lisanna weren't reluctant to part with him. However, they still turned to look at Noah. "Are you planning to leave tomorrow?" Mira asked thoughtfully. "Then we'll help you settle the matters in the guild." "Yes," Lisanna said dutifully. "In the past, I've been helping the president." "No, helping Grandpa with the guild's matters." "Also, Grandpa sometimes has to go out for regular meetings. Sister Mira and I are handling the guild's matters. There won't be a problem if you leave it to us. I just want you guys to help me deal with the guild's affairs for the time being," Noah said, smiling. "However, if you're too busy, you can't tire yourself out. It's okay. If it's really necessary, Shu and I and Alusha will help us too. You can rest assured and settle your own matters." Mira smiled gently. "Do you need to pack anything?" "Just in case, help me prepare some food and clothes." Noah raised his hand. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed in his hand and turned into a card. This gift card can be used to store food and clothes. It can also store items like magic crystals, magical weapons, and even magic-guided weapons. Just help me put some food, water, and clothes in. In other words, it's something like a storage space for magical equipment, right? Lisanna stepped forward and took the gift card from Noah's hand. She flipped through it curiously while praising it. It can also store food and water. With this, it'll be much more convenient even if it's a long-term mission. Now, I even use this to store Aster and Athena's elven equipment. Noah shrugged. Although the two of them were very dissatisfied at first. Mira and Lisanna couldn't help but laugh when they heard that. "Have a good rest today," Mira said. "Food, water, and clothes. We'll prepare them for you." "Okay." Noah leaned on the sofa comfortably, his expression becoming lazy again. "Sorry to trouble you, my wives." The two sisters immediately smiled like flowers. Obviously, they were very happy with Noah's words. "Oh, right." Lisanna suddenly remembered something and asked. "Then, what about the duel between Brother Noah and Naz?" "The duel with Naz?" Noah opened his eyes, the lazy expression on his face fading away. Then, Noah took out a piece of paper from his pocket. There was a line of words written on the paper. Looking at the words, Noah slowly raised the corner of his mouth. "Don't worry, before leaving tomorrow, I'll finish it." Chapter 1747. The next day. In front of his house, Noah put on his coat and turned to look behind him. Mira and Lisanna were standing side by side. "Brother Noah." Lisanna handed the dark gold gift card to Noah. "Food, water, and clothes are all prepared. The amount is enough to last you 3 months. You can use it without worry." 3 months. Noah took the gift card and was a little surprised. Isn't it a little too much? There's no harm in being prepared. 3 months' worth is more than enough even if Big Brother Noah needs to give it to others. Of course, it's best to prepare as much as possible at a time like this, Lisanna said. These are small matters. The most important thing is that Brother Noah must take good care of himself. Lisanna is right. Mira stepped forward and tidied up Noah's collar in an extremely virtuous manner. No matter what, the most important thing is to take good care of yourself. Don't force yourself. I know. I won't let you worry. Noah smiled. I'll leave the matters of the guild to you for the time being. The two sisters nodded and stepped forward at the same time. One on the left and one on the right, they gave Noah a peck on the cheek and left a sentence behind. Be careful on the road. Noah nodded, stretched out his hands, and hugged his two wives. He kissed them on the forehead before separating. Then, I'll be going out. After that, Noah opened the door and slowly left the city under the gaze of Mira and Lisanna. Mira and Lisanna watched Noah leave until Noah's back disappeared from their sight. The two sisters then relaxed, smiled at each other, and entered the house. On the other hand, after Noah left Magnolia, he did not immediately return to the world between worlds. Instead, he identified the direction and fixed his eyes on a tall mountain. At the next moment, Noah's figure turned into a stream of light and soared into the sky, flying towards the mountain. Whoo! At the top of the mountain, there was a cold wind that seemed to be spiraling. It blew past, bringing up a cloud of sand and dust that was blown into the distance. In the direction of the dust, Naz was turning his arms as if he was exercising his body. From time to time, he would jump up and down as if he was preparing for exercise. In fact, Naz was indeed doing preparatory exercises. Because, next, Nazi needed to do a lot of exercise. In order to maintain his physical condition at the best level, the always slow-witted Naz also began this method that others didn't think was his style. However, such a performance also proved how serious Naz was about the upcoming duel. Not long after, the opponent that Nazi had carefully prepared for finally arrived. Phew! In the sharp sound of breaking the air, a streamer of light burst from the horizon. It was like a thunderbolt, fiercely falling on the ground. With a pang sound, it stirred up a thick cloud of dust. At the same time, Naz suddenly stopped the movements of his hands. His eyes seemed to be burning with flames, surging with an extremely bright expression. Immediately, under Naz's gaze, the thick sand in front of him slowly dissipated, revealing a figure in the air. Sorry, Naz. Noah raised his head and met Naz's gaze. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. I'm not too late, right? I'm too late. Naz grinned and said so. I'm already burning up. In that case, when you sent the challenge letter to me, you should have marked the time on it, right? Noah took out a piece of paper from his arms and said helplessly. In the end, you only told me a vague location and didn't even mark the time. Who knows if I will make you wait for a long time. Ah. Naz seemed to have just recalled this matter and said in a sudden realization. If that's the case, it should be like this. You. Noah was speechless. This so-called challenge letter was found on the bar counter of the guild the night before when Noah was about to go home. Although there was no signature and no identification, Noah almost immediately understood who this challenge letter belonged to. Except for Naz, there was no other candidate. However, the person who helped Naz to send the challenge letter to the guild should be Hubby, right? Thinking of this, Noah glanced around, but he didn't find Hubby. Seeing Noah looking around, Naz surprisingly understood what Noah was looking for and said this directly. Don't look for Hubby, I asked him to go back to the guild first. Really? Noah was taken aback slightly. In other words, this time only the two of us will have a duel. Yes. Naz stretched out his left hand and held his right arm tightly. After all, in order to draw out the power in my body, I have already forced myself. Finally, I was very lucky to succeed in the situation of risking my life, but that's it. I don't have the confidence to control it at all. If Hubby is here, I don't know if he will be hurt. Draw out the power in your body. Noah raised his eyebrows and looked at Naz's right arm. Only then did Noah notice. There was a bandage wrapped around Naz's right arm. That doesn't seem to be because of injury. With Noah's perception ability, he could vaguely feel it. Under the bandage, there was a rather scorching breath undulating. So, Noah's face slowly showed an expression of, as expected. Do you really have a hidden trump card? That's not my hidden trump card, but a gift from someone else. Naz's gaze had been fixed on Noah, but he began to untie the bandage wrapped around his right arm. Although I'm very unwilling, I know that it's impossible to win against you with my own strength, so I can only put my mind on this power. With such a sentence, Naz suddenly tore off the bandage on his right arm. This power belongs to the dragon. When these words came out of Naz's mouth, a terrifying heat surged from his body. Chi 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 chi. Around Naz, the air began to distort, and even smoke rose as if it was on fire, making a scorching sound. The entire space seemed to have been roasted into a fiery red color. Boom! With a burst of sound, Naz's right arm began to burn with flames. The flame actually increased the surrounding heat by another level, causing the ground under Naz's feet to be melted by the amazing heat and began to sink. Seeing this scene, Noah's eyes narrowed. Because under Noah's perception ability, at this time, Naz's magic power was showing a trend of crazy skyrocketing. It kept rising, and his aura also became more and more terrifying. That aura almost instantly skyrocketed to the level that surpassed Alusha and Kagura, and even surpassed Jura immediately. Moreover, it was still rising. In the blink of an eye, under Noah's perception ability, Naz's magic power suddenly rose to the level that was comparable to the most vicious and evil black mage in history, and even surpassed it in the past. What does this mean? It means that Naz's power, which was at the bottom of the 5-digit level at the beginning, instantly rose to the level of the gods in the box, which was the peak of the 5-digit level. No. It's not just the peak of the 5-digit level. The power of that aura is extremely close to the 4-digit level. It's only one step away from reaching the 4-digit level. Naz. Noah was really surprised. He. Naz grinned, and his eyes flashed. Take this. Noah. As soon as his voice fell. Boom. In the next moment, Naz tightened his body. Under the situation where the ground was crushed, he stirred up a hurricane impact. Like a bullet out of a barrel, he violently shot in front of Noah. Hiya! In the midst of the violent roar, Naz's entire body surged with surging flames. As Noah's pupils suddenly shrank, Naz charged in Noah's direction and fiercely blasted out a shocking punch. Boom! A burst of scorching flames exploded on top of the mountain, attacking in all directions. Chapter 1748. Boom! Extremely surging flames erupted from the top of a mountain outside Magnolia. Like the wrath of the god of fire, it instantly raised the temperature of the entire world a little, drying up the gale. Amidst the scalp-numbing burning sounds, the entire mountain peak was like a fragile cake. The top of the mountain was constantly melting under the burning flames. The rocks and rock plates were like cream, melting bit by bit into a grease-like substance. It was incomparably terrifying. As for the flowers and trees, they had long been burned into ashes and disappeared without a trace under the burning of the surging flames. That scene was like a natural disaster. On the top of the melting mountain, the earth was also burning, turning into a sea of fire with amazing heat. In the center of the sea of fire, Noah caught the fist of Nazi, whose whole body was burning in flames. Looking closely, on Noah's arm, there were magic lines flashing like electric wires. Impressively, it was the strengthening magic that could give Noah a physical ability comparable to the divine level. However, the sleeve on Noah's arm had long been burned to the point that not a single trace of ash could be seen. It's really amazing. Noah sensed the astonishing heat that was constantly being released from Naz's body. An inconceivable light appeared in his deep, dark eyes. Nazi, I didn't expect you to have this level of power. It's you who is amazing. You actually took this punch head-on. As expected of Noah. Nazi was like a warrior, showing a vigorous smile. However, as I said before, this power doesn't belong to me. It's the power of the dragon. The power of the dragon. Noah's eyes flickered. Could it be, what? Have you guessed it? Nazi grinned. Yes, this is the power that Ignir left for me. The Fire Dragon King, Ignir. That was an absolute powerhouse in the Dragon Clan, someone who even dared to face a Conoraglia. The Dragon Clan's Fire Dragon Clan even worshipped him as their king. Unfortunately, such an existence's soul had long been sucked away by Akenrolia's dragon-slaying magic 400 years ago. Only his power remained in Naz's body to prolong his life. Half a month ago, Ignir and the rest of the dragons disappeared from Cloacus under the watchful eyes of Noah and the others. However, even though it had disappeared, Ignir seemed to have left all his remaining power in Naz's body. That's really a very amazing power, a power that I couldn't imagine before no matter what. Naz said as he tightened his fist that was caught by Noah. Originally, with my current strength, there was no way to unseal this power. Even if I spent a year or so, I might not be able to unseal it and use it. However, a few days ago, I accidentally unsealed this power. Although it's very difficult to control, it shouldn't be a problem to use it. Naz smiled. Perhaps, even Ignir wants to fight you. That's why he asked me to release this power, right? Like a furious fire dragon, he repeatedly blasted out heavy meteorite-like fists in the direction of Noah. Suddenly, Naz's fists directly turned into fiery red fish shadows, constantly flying out and blasting toward Noah overwhelmingly. The momentum was really terrifying, causing Noah's face to become solemn. However, this situation also made Noah's heart surge with blood, and the magic power in his body skyrocketed in an instant. Immediately, Noah raised his arms. Bang 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 bang. The storm-like punches suddenly fell fiercely on Noah's raised arms. As if causing a chain explosion, waves of fire burst out and covered Noah's body. Hiya! Naz was like an angry dragon. He repeatedly swung his fists that carried powerful flames in front of him, causing bursts of flames to explode one after another like bombs, stirring up waves of fire. It was like a whistling flood that covered the sky and earth. Under the powerful blow, the entire mountain top trembled slightly. At a certain moment, an explosion that was much louder than any previous explosion burst out, causing a figure to fly out of the fire wave. He took a few steps back before stabilizing his figure. As soon as his figure stabilized, a fierce light flashed in Noah's eyes. He raised a hand in the direction of Naz, who was still rushing toward him. A faint blue magic array flashed in front of Noah's palm. Inside, a vast magic power gathered and formed, turning into a huge beam of light that burst out from the magic array. Like a laser, it flashed in the space and shot straight at Naz. Facing the huge magic power beam, Naz just clenched his fist tightly. The flames on his body rose and surged to his fist. Under Naz's wave, he blasted out. With a muffled sound, Naz's fist fiercely hit the magic power beam that burst out. The astonishing power and heat directly shattered the magic light beam with a single punch. Noah suddenly stood up in shock. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.